Vinyl Tag 2024. Thanks to Rob Walker again for putting together a list of 20 questions that we need to answer, or we choose to answer, as part of this tag, Vinyl Tag again. The first one I did was in 2023. I thought it was great. I'm going to do join the 2024 train today. I saw from your own video, Rob, that somebody had left a bit of a barbed comment about your jumper. But so I thought I'd come out in solidarity with you as a member of the Jumper Union. But those of us in the Northern Hemisphere will know that this time of year, jumpers are appropriate wear. So 20 questions, challenges, if you like. I'm going to rattle through them. I'll try and get this done in 10 minutes, but it's more likely to take an hour. So hang around if you wish. So number one, the favorite record you purchased in 2023. And this is Here's the Tender Coming by the Unthanks. Now, I did speak about this in a fairly recent video. This was originally released in 2009, but I think it's the first time in 2023 it appeared on vinyl. Indeed it is, on Rabble Rouser Music. Now, the Unthanks. Folk, with the accent on two fantastic singers out front, which is Rachel and Becky Unthank. Much of the music is kind of sparse. They've got very distinctive but different voices. It's got this a cappella feel about it. So if you kind of, I remember seeing them at Warwick Arts Centre a few years ago, probably actually 2009, 2010. So it's a long time ago now. And they were just absolutely riveting. Not a lot going on stage, but the purity of the voices was magnificent. So anyway, finally got it on vinyl. I think it was its first vinyl release, so I'm chuffed with that. So question number 2 is the last record you bought in 2023. Well, towards the end of 2023, I rediscovered the future sound of London. So back in the 90s, I was buying CD singles and albums like Life Forms by the Future Sound of London, which is effectively a duo who do this electronica, but with a dance vibe, but also ambient. So it's not all dance, it's not all ambient. It's really interesting. Their music kind of flows from one track into another, and yet it never stays the same. It's always kind of changing, and it draws on dance music of the 90s, but it doesn't hammer dance music for the night. So you're not sitting there in an ambient sort of mood and then suddenly you're knocked out of your chair by some pulsating beats. It's really subtle, really good. Really like that band. Bought half a dozen of their albums in the Environment series. This was Environments number 4. So the band or singer who released 2 or more albums in the same year. A couple of quickies. Well, Bruce did that in, I think, 1992. That was the long version, Human Touch, and this was the shorter, more immediate sounding version, which I think is the Lucky Town is the one that got the critics' vote. That's not what I'm going to go for, so if you forgive me, I've got a second choice, and that's in 1976, where you got Genesis, Trick of the Tail, and Wind and Wuthering. The reason why I picked these two is because the creativity and the compositional effort that must have gone in to this band in this period, recovering from the loss of Peter Gabriel as the singer, not even sure they were going to carry on, and they pulled together 2 incredibly strong, elaborate, complex works which have stood the test of time. This is obviously the one that's kind of more immediate. This is more kind of longer form, as it were, but they're both stunning albums if you like that sort of thing. So that's Genesis, Trick of the Tail, and Wind and Wuthering. If you could only listen to music from one decade, which decade would you choose? I'll choose the 1970s, and that's not because I'm an old fart. I think it was the most creative and varied decade in popular rock stroke pop music. I think we saw all sorts of genres. It was almost like the shackles were off. Bands could become commercial successes doing really quite unusual musical styles. So more of that to come. So, for example, you know, prog came late 60s, really blossomed in the early 1970s, and a lot of that music still holds up today. But of course, punk and new wave and electronica, and sure, you know, there's loads of stuff going on. Decent pop music as well, not all generic. Show record by a band or singer from Manchester. Oh, Rob, I was thinking of another one. Bear with me. This one's for Rob Walker. Bartley James Harvest from Oldham, which is where you're living or you're from, Rob. So, yeah, once again, it's the second or third album, considered to be a real classic. So, kind of prog, folky, harmony vocals, soft vocals, lead guitar, mellotron features strongly here. But anyway, that's Oldham, kind of not Manchester, really. So, let's pick my choice from Manchester, and that is, you know who, Joy Division. Everyone knows this one, of course. Many of us will have it, of course, but I think their second album, is the one that is just beautiful, absolutely great. It's kind of pretty dynamic sounding on side one, side two, kind of more laid back, but dark, really good, but fantastic band. Never saw them live, but never mind. Which band or singer, this is question number 6, which band or singer did you listen to the most in 2023? Nick Cave. Filling in the gaps in my collection. He is so prolific, and I just love this later period of Nick Cave. He was, you know, he's been around since the 80s, and he was, you know, on the back of kind of a punk new wavy sort of vibe, but he's become a really mature artist in the last 10-20 years. And the music he does now with Warren Ellis, with providing sound effects and violin and keyboards and so on, have really enriched the sound. So yeah, Nick Cave, loads to discover. I mean, he's, as I say, he's so prolific. It's going to take years before you're kind of on top of this music and you really understand it, but I'm working my way through it as we go. But that's Nick Cave, my most listened to artist in 2023. Show 7 7-inch records. Well, number 1 is King Crimson, and that's 21st Century Schizoid Man with the A-side, double A-side really, Epitaph. Both tracks from the first album. I think this didn't come out in the 60s. It came out in 1976 because it was there to promote this album, which is the Young Person's Guide to King Crimson. And it's a fantastic double LP compilation. Great place to start if you don't know King Crimson that well. Although, as a warning, the tracks are so different to each other in across this album. It almost sounds like a various artists album, because the band, as King Crimson fans will attest to, their music and their band lineup changed, you know, so often. And if you can get an early version of this, you get a booklet, which is a fantastic booklet with long essays and all sorts of stuff about the history of the band. So that's wonderful. So that's my first 7-inch single, Epitaph and 21st Century Schizoid Man. Second is a single that I won in a nightclub by guessing the previous single by Elvis Costello was Red Shoes, was Watching the Detectives. Fantastic classic single. The third one is in plastic here, which is the debut single by Public Image. And I've not opened this for years. This is what it came in. It's like a newspaper. I don't want to tear this. Well, I've torn it. You know, I was taught years ago. There you go. Public Image, John Lydon, Jah Wobble, Keith Levine. Where have we got? Oh, here we go. So there you go. Yeah, fantastic single. The debut single by Public Image. Patti Smith, Because the Night. Says here, co-written by Patti Smith and Bruce Springsteen, but us Springsteen fans know that Springsteen wrote this, and all Patti did was mess around with the lyrics a little bit. Brilliant single. Tommy Gun by The Clash, from the second album, Give 'Em Enough Rope. Saw them on that tour. Tremendous, fantastic live band. Another artist I saw live on stage around this time was Kate Bush, Sunderland Empire. And the only tour she ever did, I mean, she did a residency at the Hammersmith Apollo, or Odeon, as we used to call it, in London several years ago. But this were 4 live tracks from that first tour. And finally, Message in a Bottle by The Police. And this is the wonderful green vinyl version. Look at that. Awesome. Awesome. So, 7 7-inch singles. We lost them. Choose one musician who passed away in 2023. For me, it has to be Sinead O'Connor. Troubled soul. This was a particular tragedy because, I think Tina Turner also died in 2023. Was it Levon Helm? Oh, no, it was Robbie Robertson, I think, died. So loads of, we're at the stage now where all those great musicians died, but hers was a particular tragedy because she wasn't that old and she'd had mental health difficulties. Controversial, provocative figure, but the most angelic voice, absolutely fantastic. And this album here, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, is superb. I've forgotten. Number 8. Who's coming to your party? All right. So no album to show this one. So I've got 4 people. So choose 4 music-related people to come to an imaginary dinner party. Past or present, who would you invite? Well, I would invite Bob Dylan for his wit and his in-depth knowledge of music of the 20th century. John Lydon, because I think he's has proven to be not just really funny, but I think a really caring person as well. And I think he'd be really, really good company. And I think he'd get on pretty well with Bob. I think they'd crack a few funnies together. Nick Cave, because he's thoughtful. The way he interacts with his fans, his writings as well. He's a wonderfully sensitive character. Tough, and his life's been blighted by tragedy as well. So he's really interesting guy. And the 4th person who would come to my dinner party would be Debbie Harry. I don't know why she would come though, but the bad news for Debbie is that there's only 3 taxis available at the end of the night. So I think Debbie might have to stay over, but who knows? I'm sure she won't mind. Right. Imagine you could listen. This is question 10. Imagine you could only listen to music from one country. Which country would you choose? Well, I was going to say England, but I'm going to say the UK because, the UK, prog I mentioned before, punk, the Beatles, the Stones, folk music, Edward Elgar, Vaughan Williams. But I want to stretch it from England to the UK, and because I want to include Van Morrison and the Blue Nile in Deacon Blue, of course. So those Irish and Scottish artists as well. So it's going to be the UK. So name 3 vinyl community channels you discovered in 2023. I watch a lot of YouTube. I'm retired now, so I can watch all of these YouTube videos from the vinyl community contributors. Half a dozen a day. So I've discovered loads. I've rediscovered some. And I'm not sure when I subscribed to them, to be honest with you, because I haven't gone back into YouTube to see if I can find out when I did. But these are the ones that I really, really like and I liked a lot in 2023. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description here so you can find these as well. First one is Embryonic Robot. That's Brian. I think Brian's in Canada. Big Smiths fan. I'm not so much of a Big Smiths fan, but hey ho. Hans at Electric Brain, Electric Shadow. Now, I don't think he's a member of the vinyl community, but he's a musician, but he talks really thoughtfully and intelligently about the bands that he's been influenced by, and he kind of does reviews of their albums and their catalogs. And he's not exclusively vinyl, I'm sure, but he's really interesting. If you want to sit down and listen to someone who's really thought about what he's going to say, he's good. Hans is good. American guy. French vinyl addict. Great contributor in the vinyl community, comments, supports other people, has got very similar to musical tastes to mine, at least in part. I'm going to throw two more in. Vinyl Monkey, that's Malcolm in, is it Stockton? But anyway, it's Cleveland in the northeast of England. Malcolm's got a really deep knowledge of some artists in particular, like Van Morrison, and he speaks with real. He's kind of quite dry, but really quite strong and enthusiasm. So I do always tune in to Malcolm. And Harris Pilton, who is a younger guy, although he probably says he's not that young anymore, but he's just the sort of guy who was a bit roguish at work, who would be into music, he'd be into having a good night out. He's got a really good wit. He seems to spend too much money on some of his records, in my judgment, but yeah, he's fun to watch. And then finally, I'm just going to give a shout out also to MGK Boston, because Mike is prolific on YouTube, putting these videos together. Very impromptu, but he's got a really good wit as well, and he makes me laugh every time. So anyway, that's great. So that's half a dozen. It was supposed to be 3, but sorry, there's half a dozen. Show record you bought when you were a teenager. This is a story in my teenage years, and this is Fire Brigade by The Move, which is a compilation from the 60s. Maybe might include 1970 tracks on here. But it's got, it's Roy Wood's band at this particular point. Bev Bevan was involved, the drummer, who became a member of ELO, and Jeff Lynne joined them in the later years. But Roy Wood, what a great songwriter. He's got some great tracks on this here. Flowers in the Rain. Here We Go Around the Lemon Tree, Fire Brigade, Blackberry Way, Brontosaurus. Really great psychedelic pop of the late 60s. Right, show a funk or soul record. I always think of funk like early mid-1970s stuff, but given that it's kind of stretched into soul, I am going to go for this absolutely brilliant album by George Benson. And he's kind of Give Me the Night, and it's his kind of most accessible material. His pop years, fantastic jazz-inflected guitar, beautiful vocalist, got a lovely soft voice. The rhythms are fantastic. This is from my nightclub years. I was going to clubs and dancing to this sort of stuff from time to time. But yeah, brilliant album. Brilliant album. Right, show a record you think everyone has, and then show a record you think nobody has. Well, everyone has Hotel California by the Eagles. There we go. And there's not many people, I don't think I've ever heard anyone say anything about this band, which is Beckett. I think this band was from the Northeast. But then they're noted, this is kind of folky, but rock. They're kind of noted for the lead singer, Terry Wilson Slessor. Now, Terry Slessor joined Backstreet Crawler, which was Paul Kossoff's band. Paul Kossoff, of course, the guitarist in Free. And I remember having front row ticket to see Backstreet Crawler at Newcastle City Hall. And then the gig was cancelled because Paul Kossoff died on an aeroplane. So Terry continued with the rest of the band and created albums under the moniker of Crawler rather than Backstreet Crawler. Nice vocalist, really good. So that's an album that I don't think many people have got. Beckett from 1974. 15, She's Great, a record made by a female artist you bought in 2023. Well, in 2023, one of the videos I did was on my favorite, or of course the best female vocalists. And a friend of mine commented and said, you've missed so-and-so, 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 and all that sort of stuff, and made a recommendation of Anais Mitchell, American, New York State, I believe. He recommended this artist, and I picked up this album, and she's great, absolutely great. Very soft vocals, quite atmospheric. I mean, it's not Joni Mitchell. I'm focusing on her namesake really, but if you like female vocalists and it's kind of quite laid back but interesting sonically, then she's definitely worth checking out. So that was the artist I was kind kind of learned new things about in 2023. Anyway, the favorite video you posted on your channel in 2023 and the favorite video you watched on the VC in 2023. This is kind of hard, really. The first part's not so hard. The second part is impossible because I watched so many videos. So I don't want to single out. I can't single out a single video because I followed all the people that I mentioned earlier. And for that list, I should mention Vinyl Richie as well because he always makes me laugh, even though his musical taste is rotten. Sorry, Richie, but there you go. But my favorite video of what I did was the one I did on record cleaning. Because when you do these videos, I don't know about you, you don't have a script. You put the camera on and you give it a go, and then you reach the end of the video and you stick it in the computer and you think, well, what have I got here? And you think, oh, why didn't I say that? Or I forgot that, or I made this mistake. And I thought, oh, but I thought this particular video when I did on my record cleaning process, which includes vacuum record cleaning and the Humming Guru, which is behind the camera here, I talked about my process for cleaning records. And when I looked back on that video in the edit, I thought it was the tightest one I'd done. No waffle, which is unusual for me. And I thought it was actually quite helpful, and people seem to enjoy it. So yeah, that's about record cleaning. But forgive me, vinyl community members, I can't name a particular video that I think has been the one that has really stood out because I like so many of them. Show record you describe as a 90s classic. Rage Against the Machine. Sounds fantastic. So lively. So much energy here. Brilliant, brilliant album. Didn't like it at the time because I didn't know anything about Rage Against the Machine. I wasn't interested in this stuff in the 1990s. And then they released Killing in the Name as a single to oust Simon Cowell from getting the Christmas #1 spot. And this went to #1 and it was amazing. I picked up this album. I thought, wow, that's fantastic. Here we go. Show me a record you describe. Oh, no. If I could walk into the cover, this is question 18, so I'm nearly done. Look through your collection and choose a record cover you'd like to be part of. Well, I wanted to be part of Hotel California, but this is the one I really like to be part of. And this is Club Tropicana by Wham. Look at the boys there. 25 years ago, me and Jill went on a holiday before our children were born to the Maldives. Last minute deal, cheap as chips, unbelievable. But we had such a fantastic experience on an island like this where I used to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning to watch the sun come up. And then I'd walk the 7 minutes it took to walk all the way around the island before coming back, getting back into bed, or then going for breakfast. Unbelievable paradise. Fantastic. Cost an absolute fortune to go there now, so I can't afford it anymore. But yeah, I'd love to experience that 2 weeks without not wearing shoes, sitting on a beach. Fantastic. Second last one. It's like a greatest hits show record you're so familiar with that it feels like a greatest hits. Van Morrison's Moondance. You just play this and you just go through side 1 and side 2, and it's just like one Van Morrison classic after another. This is the triple set that came out. I think it's a Steven Wilson remix. It sounds fantastic. Fantastic album. And if you're a fan of Moondance, by the way, and you haven't got this triple set, well worth getting. And show an album that was released in 1974, Late for the Sky by Jackson Browne. Another classic, his big breakthrough classic before he released The Pretender. Wonderful, sensitive singer-songwriter, great arrangements, wonderful voice as well. Very, typically what us Brits would think of Californian. But yeah, really good. This guy is an amazing songwriter, but most of you will probably know that. Right, so that's the vinyl tag 2024. Rob, thanks again. And for anybody else who's watched this, look forward to seeing more of your videos in 2024. Yeah, as I say, I'm retired. Got nothing else to do. So anyway, catch you later. Happy New Year to everyone. Ta-da.